Hey, this is Math students. Welcome to classwork homework S.18 mock test. Remember, use this to study for your test tomorrow. Show the work just like I show it. Make sure you understand how to do every problem. So, problem number one, what decimal is equivalent to 1/3? Hopefully you got it memorized. To show some work though, you say, okay, how many times does 3 go into 1, right? Always the denominator into the numerator, the bottom number into the top number. 3 can't go into 1, so 3 goes into 10 3 times. That's 9 with 1 left over. Put down another 0. Bring it on down. 3 goes into 10. 3 more times. Put down 9. 1 left over. Another 0. And you'll notice we'll just continue to get 3 left over. So 0.333 repeated, or 0.333. Number 2, what is 75% of 80? Remember, you can use the traditional algorithm, 80 times 0.75. You can use 80 times 75%. All right, you can use all that stuff, right? You could use, you can't use the zeros trick on this, but you could use a tape diagram, which I've set up over here. So think about 75%, break it down. It can be made up into 50%, right? It can be 20% and 5%. 50% is 40, right? Because we know 100% is 80, so 50 is 40. 10% is 8, so therefore 20% is 16. And if 10% is 8, 5% then is 4. So let's add that up. Because that added up together is 75%. So 75% of 80 is, carry the 1, 60. Okay? You could show this work. Again, you could show the work that's simply just, hey, what is 80 times 70.75, right? Up to you. Got to show the work on tomorrow's test, though. And number 3, which of the following is ordered least to greatest? When I give you a whole bunch of different types of rational numbers, fractions, decimals, or percents, convert everything to the same number. It might be easiest to convert it to a percent, right? You have a convert percent button on your calculator. You hit second and then the right parentheses. So 0.8 gives you 80%. 2/3 gives you 66.666 repeated percent, right? 67%. 70% is already a percent, so 70%. So the smallest one, least, is going to be 66, right? So that should be first. So you're looking for 2/3 first. That's why B is your answer. None of the other ones start with 2/3, right? You could have also said, hey, 80%, that should be my last one. So 0.8 should be at the end. So it was in between these two. It's got to be B. For grade point average, Dion received the following grades. Remember, a B is worth 3 points and A is worth 4 points. B is 3 points, C is worth 2 points, and an A is worth 4 points. What's his grade point average? To find average, add everything up. Step 1. Step 2, divide by how many you have. If I add everything up, I'm going to go ahead and get 16, so a total of 16, and then I just simply do 16 divided by how many classes I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and my grade point average ends up being a 3.2A. All right? For questions like 5 and 6, they look simple, and all I got to do is circle a correct answer. Wrong. You got to make sure that you show work, right? So, a question like number 5, again, you can use your calculator to check all these percents. You don't want to convert to a percent, you want to convert to a decimal. So, you're going to type in the number, second left parentheses for the parenthesis sign, hit enter, and see if you can get a decimal here. Or, again, you can remember just swoop 2 times to the left. So, if I swoop 2 times to the left here, once, twice, I should get 0.007, not 0.7. So A is the false answer, right? If I swoop 2 times to the left, once, twice, notice I'll get 0.0007. So that's correct. If I swoop twice to the left here, I'll get 0.07, which is correct. And if I swoop twice to the left here, I'll get 7.00, which is the same thing as 7. So they're all true except for A. Again, number 6, which of the following is not equivalent to 2 3/8? So break down 2 3/8. You got 2 wholes. You use your calculator to say 3/8. What is that as a decimal? It is 0.375, excuse me. And so that means that, hey, 2.375 is equivalent, so that's out because we want what's not equivalent. Then if I take 2.375 and I swoop twice to the right to convert it to a percent, or use my calculator and hit the percent convert button, that gives me 237.5%. So that's out. So I'm down to these two. If I take 2 3/8 and I convert it to an improper fraction, 2 times 8, that's 16. Add it together, I get 19/8. So that means that's out. So that means I'm left with D, 2.38. Okay. Number 7, if CJA spends about 80% more than CPS on students, if CPS spends about $15,000 per student, how much does CJA spend per student? Understanding, if I write 80% more, that means I'm doing 180% of what CPS spends, right? If CPS is at 100%, right here at 15,000 is 100%, I could break this down until I find out what 180%, but 180% is going to be above there. Or I could just do the traditional algorithm. You guys got to calculate, right? You can just type in 15,000 times 180%, make sure you put the percent sign, you'll get 27,000, right? 12,000 there is just what 80% of 15,000 is, so don't get tricked up on that. Number 8, 25% of the 36 students that are in 7th grade were eligible for Dean's Day. How many 7th graders were eligible for Dean's Day? It's just a percent of problem. That just means multiply. So you can, again, just do the traditional algorithm. 36 times 25% or 0.25, however you want to do it, you'll end up with 9. You could also do a tape diagram here. You could also say, hey, 25%, that's 1/4. 1/4 times 36 over 1, right? You'll get 36 over 4, which is equal to 9. There's a whole bunch of different ways to do that problem, okay? But easiest way is to think of it as percent of problem. Here, Derek wants to go to college, so he takes out a loan. The bank gives him $30,000 at 4.5% interest for a rate of 6 years. How much will he have to pay the bank in total? Not in interest, but in total. So interest formula is P is equal to I is equal to principal times our rate, R, and T time. So our interest that we're going to pay is equal to 30,000 times our rate as a decimal. That is not a decimal yet. 0.045. Now we have it as a decimal. 0.045 times the amount of time, which is 6 years. When I multiply that together, I get my interest is equal to 8,100. Some of you might be jumping the gun and saying A is your answer. No, that's your interest. Remember, you got to pay back the $30,000 that you borrowed in the first place. So your answer is $30,000 plus 8,100. So don't jump to that gun on tomorrow's test. Make sure you go the extra step. Number 10, it says, what improper fraction is represented by the picture below? Some of you might be immediately saying, hey, 2 2/5. That's not an improper fraction. That's a mixed number. So you could convert 2 2/5 if you want, right? I could say 2 times 5, that's 10. Add it to 12. Okay, so 12 over 5 is my answer, C. Or I could go back in here and just divide these up into fifths, right? Fifths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I got 5 pieces, right? So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 fifths. Hence why I have 12 over 5. All right. We go to the back side. Remember your fourths, your thirds, your fifths, your halves. This is a side that you've seen easily, so let's do it kind of line by line here. First, line A. You know, this is probably easiest to start at number 11. Ask yourself how many times 4 goes into 9. Always the denominator into the numerator, right? Goes in there 2 times with 1 left over. There you are. 2 1/4, you're off and running, right? You choose any factor you want to multiply to get another fraction. I like always using 2, so 2 2/8. The decimal, I just broke apart my original mixed number, right? These guys are usually super connected, those two squares right there. So I got 2 1/4. I broke it apart into 2 wholes. 1/4 is something I memorized as 0.25. Then I just attach another 0. I swoop 2 times to the right for my percent, 225%. Draw my picture, make sure I divide up into fourths. I like using my fraction to take half. 9 over 4 divided by 2 over 1. Make sure you flip. Multiply it by 1/2, so it becomes 9 over 8. But be careful. Make sure you turn that improper fraction into a mixed number. And then for double it, you could multiply by 2, or I could just add 2.25 plus 2.25. That's the same thing as doubling 2.25 or doubling 9 over 4 or doubling 2 1/4. And I get 4.5. All right, for my next row, this is a big one. 1.333 repeated. You can't attach a 0, you attach a 3. So I make that 1.3333 repeated, or I could even say just 1.3 repeated. For swooping 2 times is another important one. It isn't 1,333%. It's 133.3%, right? Those thirds are a little bit tricky. I can then jump back to 20 and break that down. I got 1 whole, 0.33 repeated is 1/3, so 1 1/3. Pop over to 19, change this mixed number by multiplying the whole number times the denominator and adding it to the numerator in 4 over 3. add another fraction. Just again, I like multiplying by 2. You can multiply by whatever you want. 1 and 2, 6. Like to take half. Notice I get 4/6 as my answer on my half. I got to simplify it down to 2/3, and then again, I like doubling the decimal, just adding it together. If these were all repeat signs, make sure you have a repeat sign in 2.66. Right. Last row, it's probably best to take 3 2/5, change it into an improper fraction, then hop and change it into another fraction. Here, multiplying by 2 and making it base 10 really makes your decimal a lot easier. 3 4/10 helps you remember that 2/5 is 0.4, 4/10, right? So that's how I got broken down 3 and 0.4. Attach a 0 for 3.40. 340% here. Oops, forgot the picture here. You'll have 3 wholes and 2/5. Notice you don't always have to take half the fraction. I decided to take 3.4 divided by 2, which is 1.7. And then I've doubled 340%. Last thing, don't forget to plot A, B, and C on the number line there. That's it. Call me if you have a question.